So I'm going to introduce Darryl, and I met Darryl when I was sitting in a stairwell in Turkey last year on the phone, and Darryl explained to me that my thinking was wrong about the word legalization, and so I sat and listened to him for 10 minutes, and he's my Jesus now. That's a bit. It's a bit over the top, but I seriously think what he's saying about. I'm a literature guy, background about linguistics, semantics, and language in law, and the way that language was created in law in the 20th century does not apply to the conversation we're having about cannabis in the 21st century. And I believe. Yeah, I'm talking about cannabis, and Darryl always gets pissed off with me. So why you should be talking about everything? And I see cannabis as a bit of a Trojan horse to explain what Darryl's trying to talk about. So he's going to gateway drug. Great, it's a gateway drug. Exactly. Yeah. So then just run ahead, and then we'll start asking questions or shouting at you.
Yeah. Well, please, the interactive nature of discussion. I know. I'm leading this discussion right now, but if you want to say something, just keep it succinct, because it will help me structure when I know what you're thinking. And Sean has come up with the title, thank you, it's very creative, we talked about cognitive liberty, of a Cognitive Liberty Act wipes the slate clean. Now, this slate is clearly contaminated, and that's why it needs cleaning, and people have been alluding to all kinds of problems with the regulation and commodification.
I'm sorry.
Excellent.
You're there.
I thought we were downstairs.
No, you're okay. Cool.
Commodification of our lives, really. It's not just about the plant. We're talking about medicalizing a plant. We're talking about medicalizing society. And the Cognitive Liberty Act, which I'm proposing, is a project starting now at this law school. I'm looking for contributors. I'm not affiliated with this law school, but South Africa strikes me as the perfect place to understand why cognitive liberty is the ultimate in a decolonization project, because it's universal. We're not looking at the classic restorative justice model, which looks at the atrocities of the past that have been meted out against people of different ethnicities and people from lower socioeconomic strata. And the restorative justice model typically is entitlement focused, in that when I say entitlement, I mean that it applies to a group of people, but not everybody. So if I have a prescription for something, I have a form of entitlement. But if I have a universal right to something, I don't need to play the victim or showcase the truth of my historic oppression to claim it. I'm talking about something which is universal, which is the jurisdiction of the self, which is many people consider an illusion. But how do I manage myself? How am I thinking about my life, and what is my permeability with other people, which is now I'm exercising with language, but my permeability extends to nutrients, oxygen, and of course what we call drugs, which again is a colonizing concept, because people never really thought about their sacraments or whatever labels we want to do, but they're not commodified as drugs, which is what seems to be happening. So the cognitive liberty is a way of cutting through all of that regulatory crap, which is not to say there are no regulations. I'm not like looking at some kind of anarchistic model. It's all, everything pivots around, in my mind, a common law principle of harm to others. So that's like John Stuart Mill's classic idea that you should be free and to enjoy what you like to enjoy up until the point that you cause social harm, not necessarily harm to ourselves, because that has become another trope of overextension of state and government, is that they claim proxy jurisdiction over your health. I mean, it ultimately will be compulsory Tai Chi classes at 6 a.m. in your own good. And that we already allow people to be slovenly, as you can see, or we can indulge in all kinds of things and dangerous activities without the state getting involved. But somehow, when it comes to consciousness, they have claimed proxy dominion over you. So, in a way, it's almost as if our lives are as akin to an organism on a little petri dish, which a scientist is controlling the environment. So when a scientist grows a bacterial colony on a petri dish, he chooses the substrate which he wants to test about how that organism will assimilate it. He chooses the temperature, the lighting, and he incubates it. And in a way, what the legislation is doing is it's giving the government to play the role of the scientist, where they can determine your substrate. Unlike most other animals that aren't farmed, that choose what they're going to eat or what they're going to use, we are deemed incapable and irresponsible to do that. But of course, when you treat people like that and you infantilize them, it does turn out that people go on benders. I've just flown in from Leeds Bradford Airport a couple of days ago at 4 a.m. and everybody is drinking pints of lager because they're free. All of a sudden, they've been given a freedom to do it because there's no licensing at the airport. But I'm a great believer that if you treat people with respect and you also have a social justice model of appropriate redistribution and access, then you don't need to be condescending to the public and claim that they're too stupid to have jurisdiction over their own minds. So the Cognitive Liberty Act, I'm looking for support here because it's the ultimate tool of decolonization of mind. Now, when I discussed this with people, I just floated the idea with Paul, and his intuitive thought was, we're not ready for that, and we have to work somewhat incrementally, which is why we always look at these kind of thin end of the wedge arguments that we could introduce psilocybin, for example, under a piece of legislation under very strict controls. When it ends up, although some people would have access to it, we would end up with even more regulations than there are before. Like I've seen various talks this morning about cannabis. It's incredible that in England I can get a prescription by paying to play, as it were. It's just a formality that you have an online consultation. I get my script, but if I was to roll it up and smoke it, I could be arrested. And when I started smoking cannabis at university, in the last century, it was inconceivable that cannabis would end up like that. That I would literally be looking for some sanitized cannabis that I'd paid to play, and the doctor had ticked off over a telephone call, and I could be arrested for smoking it, as opposed to. It's crazy what we've allowed to happen, and because they have appropriated the whole culture. It's not appropriating necessarily the plant, as some people put it. They've taken control of the plant. They've taken control of society. They've taken control of ordinary, I don't mean that condescendingly, ordinary people. And this is why a Cognitive Liberty Act in South Africa would be a great idea. So how would we get there when it seems so fanciful and out of reach? And the answer is that everything that has happened until now is incorrect. So everything that you've been building on is incorrect, and it's not your own fault, but it is. And I explain why. This is where the back to basics comes in. The whole theme is back to basics. So I'm looking at language, which is our basic. Everything is down to language. Without language, we just don't have it again. And we don't have a thought. And the zenith of language, the most important language, whatever you think about the law, which is a tool of colonization, it's a tool of patriarchy, I'm going to leave those critiques on one side for the moment. We can deal with them later, but at the moment, that's going to be baggage, because I'm speaking in universal constructs, that the law does affect us all, even if we choose to break it. When you take that psychedelic, you are entering a space of opprobrium, because of the setting. The most important thing about using a substance is the setting. When I'm in Amsterdam, I can smoke and I feel relaxed. If I have exactly the same strain in London outside a cafe, I'll be completely wide and losing the plot. Setting is everything, and the setting is one of opprobrium and criminality. And that is powerful, and the law can really mess you up because it can just lift you out of here, seize your phone, seize you, break down your doors, and lock you up and take away your assets. So it has power. Therefore, we have to respect it in the sense that we recognise its power. I don't mean respect the whole institution. That I'm not going to stand here in a law school or sit here in a law school and make out that law is just a political fetish of political action, and we really ought to be, going even beyond the Constitution and fighting for our freedoms. That's a story for a different day. We're working with the law we've got, and the understanding is that language of the law is called legalese, and this is where I can't fail, because I'm on very, very safe ground, is that common language has really bastardized and corrupted legalese without the lawyers even realizing it. And when the lawyers wake up to that, and when they stand up to it, and they stop people misrepresenting the law through what I call pseudo-legalese or quasi-legalese, then we really, really will move. I guarantee it. It's foolproof in a sense that the power language that controls us has been flipped. And the way it's been flipped is that they took the legal subject, what we call natural persons, and in law there's two kinds of legal subject. There's the juristic subject, which are actually corporations, and we're trying to get the natural person to have more power than to claw power back. And what they've done is they've taken the legal subject and they've erased you. And they've erased you because if you do not exist in word, you do not exist in law. Yes, you'll still be on trial, but your rights have become obliterated because the legal subject, which is you, has become erased through common speech. And the way they do it, and you didn't notice, is that it's our standard language model. And forgive me if you heard me say this before, because I keep bringing this stick, which everybody can recognise this as a walking stick, although it's also a magic stick that will make you understand. But a walking stick doesn't walk. Oh yeah, sounds silly, doesn't it? Well, I can't take that back to the shop, excuse me, on the basis of some Trade Descriptions Act, that it sits there in the corner all day and never takes the dog out. I bought a walking stick and that's what I expect. No, that'd be very, very silly, wouldn't it? It's just a figure of speech, and it's called a transferred epithet. Don't let that idea, use a technical term you've not heard before, phase you, like at school, with teaching us something you don't understand. Right, it's very simple. It just means that the epithet of walking has been transferred from the human, because it's a stick to help me with my walking, and I give it to the stick just to save time. It's harmless. But there's two areas of life that we should never do that. Law and magic spells. Because when you mess about with them, or perhaps prayers, we call those magic spells, when you mess about with them, things change because they're made of words. Laws are nothing more than words, precise words, in precise order. And yet lawyers are quite happy to talk about, oh, well, let's, we'll legalise these products. Legalise these products. That's impossible, because the only thing that can be illegal is something that you're doing, or in certain instances failed to do by omission. So every crime is an action. And yet, because of the transferred epithet model, we accept it as the immediate equivalent to say, well, yes, cannabis, or let's, I know we've changed here, 'cause now we don't believe that cannabis is illegal in South Africa, but let's say we talk about LSD, not that I'm advocating it, I'm just talking about, because I'm the possibility of being permeable with anything. That's my legacy, my right as a human being. I'm a permeable entity, that's the scientific reality of it, that here I am in a continuum with cannabis, particularly cannabis is a great example because I've got an endocannabinoid system, got an anandamide cannabinoid system, I've got a CB1, CB2, it's all part of my continuum, that's why I said the self is illusory and I'm permeable to it. And what is making the impermeability are words. The words of the law creates the kind of membrane around you that determines what the government, the scientists, deem appropriate to pass through the membrane. Yeah, alcohol can go through it without too much trouble, little niggle, just make sure over 21 or whatever. But all the other things, because they are deemed illegal, are impermeable. That means I'm impermeable. I don't have any porosity within my ecosystem. And they're doing that with words. And the words are indivisible, because as soon as you transfer the legal agency to the object and say, well, the object is either legal or illegal, or licit or illicit, doesn't matter, even criminal. Of course, how can a plant be a criminal? You know, we could decriminalise cannabis. Doesn't make sense, because you've cut the human act. It's just a shortcut. You think you know what you mean, but it's not the same thing, because in the binary of legal or illegal, in that abstraction, you lose all agency. There's no shades of grey, there's no nuance. So what I'm saying is that the path to cognitive liberty is to re-center the illusory self as the viable agency bearing legal subject, and you refute any conversation about legalizing cannabis, because that's offensive. If you believe in legalizing cannabis, which attempts to jack it off, getting quite warm, ranting away. If you legalize, yeah, they promised it with linen, but of course the lining isn't. So it's not porous. So, am I making sense? Nobody's said anything yet. Does anybody want to throw something in?
I'm really looking forward to what Gareth's going to say. I feel like the Cognitive Liberty Act is kind of asking for your own cognitive liberty, but that's presupposing that someone's taking it from you. And I'm like, why do you need to? I don't need to ask permission on to do stuff to my body. So Gareth, please, let's hear your start, bro.
You know, I know that lawyers like to call themselves wordsmiths, and they quite often lose people. And I studied law, and you know, Darryl was losing me. You know, in the South African context, Justice Sachs said, laws must serve the people. It's not for the people to serve the laws. And I think there's some curiosity, perhaps, something like in that idea in what Darryl was saying, because ultimately we've had laws in this country that never served our community, especially when it comes to the issue of dacha or cannabis. These laws has never served us, yet we were compelled to obey these laws. And that is where the injustice lies, because at the end of the day, law is not its own justification. In order for law to earn the fidelity and the respect of people, the laws must have a solid moral basis. The laws must be just. That is why apartheid could never earn the fidelity and the respect of people, because those laws were unjust. It didn't serve the interest of the community that it was applying to. So when it comes to dacha, the laws must serve us. And with the Cannabis for Private Purposes Act, it doesn't serve us. That is why we are objecting against it, because it is not the government's business. I mean, like, our understanding of democracy is such that human beings have the freedom to do whatever it is they like, as long as it doesn't impact on the ability of someone else to exercise their rights. So democracy allows you to do stupid things. You can smoke tobacco until you get cancer. You can drink alcohol until you get cirrhosis. But if you do it respectfully at the end of the day, then that's your right. in this very same way, you don't need to be convinced about the fact that my usage of cannabis is right or wrong or whatever. For me, it's moral. For me, it's just. And if I don't limit your ability to practice your rights or to exercise your rights, I must have the freedom to do that. And it's not the government's business to prescribe to me as to how I should be going about using my cannabis, because it's none of their business at the end of the day. And it is pure hypocrisy to only be concerned about health and safety when it comes to dacha, but not to opioids or alcohol or tobacco. And if at the end of the day, you've got vastly different regulatory regimes for these substances, that is unjust.
Is there anything that I've said that isn't entirely consistent with what you've said? Because I agree with everything you've said until the last word. Of course, when you talk about the regulation of substances, we're regulating the human. But everything that you've just said is entirely on all fours with what I'm saying. There's no disagreement whatsoever.
I'm glad.
Could I just, because I'm understanding both of you there. What I'm more inclined to lean towards is what Darryl is saying. And I raised the issue earlier on with the UNDRIP document, you know. So Darryl, in a way that you're saying that with this current wordplay and legalese, you know, what is being promulgated by the government and being handed to us as the peoples, you know, the cannabis for private purposes. Are we then being are we being herded to sign away our cognitive liberties, like Noam Chomsky refers to it, the consent of the governed. You know, we're giving our power away to this. You know, myself and Gareth.
They've already taken that power.
Yeah,
just 1 second. Yeah. So what I'm saying is the way to claw it back is to reclaim it in language, particularly in the law. That as soon as they characterise doesn't have to be cannabis. In some sense, we're making a fetish of freedom, but I like it. I'll go with it. That as soon as they say that it's about that, they use the expression that it is criminal or it is illegal. You're out of the equation of linguistic reality at that point. You must put yourself back into the equation, because all laws, like you're saying, they've got no business, are there to balance what their business is. So on one hand, you've got your reasonable freedom to do what you want. On the other hand, they've got their legitimate purpose to stop you messing about with other people's lives and ruining their lives. And that is balanced with words. And as soon as they take those words and start chopping them about with lay language and start saying, well, cannabis is illegal, you've now got nowhere to go, because it is indivisibly illegal, and all of the regulatory possibilities, and not of cannabis, of action. So we don't, you see, it's all about human-centric language throughout. So there's no war on drugs, because drugs don't fight in wars. We can't tax cannabis, because cannabis doesn't have a bank account, right? We can't even free cannabis. And cannabis can be sacred and holy in your belief system, but it's a sacred relationship that you have with it. Cannabis can't be illicit, and neither can it be legal. It doesn't participate in these human constructs. It certainly can't be illegal or legal. It can't be a criminal. It can't be dangerous. Just 1 second. It can't be safe. These are really important. When Professor Nutt starts talking about cannabis is quite dangerous. No drug is dangerous. It's just like, if this could be a bottle of LSD, you're not in any danger unless I pour it down your mouth. Like, and even then you might not be in danger. But it's the idea that the inanimate at level one, and I know people believe in panpsychism and spirituality of molecules, and I'm talking about the language model at ground level, is that's the object. And an object isn't dangerous unless it's a piece of radioactive material has a sort of activity on its own. So it could be dangerous if this was a plutonium isotope or something. But no drug is dangerous. It's only the danger comes from the human behaviour. So we've got to put the human back into every single expression, because when you do that, you reclaim your liberty.
So does that, sorry, because...
That's okay.
It's a conversation, so that's what it does.
My brain
That's
finds
great,
a
yeah.
different noise. I apologize in some ways for that. But I think it's my strength. So in a sense, what you're saying that our cognitive liberty sits within a different category of law or legalese, the terminology. Because we're dealing with a conflict as indigenous people, that a language, a construct of words of being deliberately used, you know, that criminalizes us from our indigeneity, you know, and that's where we're trying to figure out now exactly, and not to be negative or counterproductive, but I don't believe that we're going to win this at any lower level than going to the Constitutional Court, because we're going to need to have this discussion, because if we are the social compact that Gareth refers to, we're the evolving spokespeople, the custodians of this knowledge, you know, whether you have a physical connection to it or a spiritual connection to it, it doesn't take away from what you're highlighting to us, that there is this, like a spell in language, you know, that we in Afrikaans we call it a tuku.
Words are spells.
Words are spells.
Words are spells, that's
You
true.
know? So which is what I keep saying, like especially to my people that are not fluent in English, I am the transmuter of that language, you know, which I needed to study, like because it made me a criminal, made us a criminal. It persecuted me from being a human being.
Can I stop you for a second? What I'm saying is I'm trying to show you how whatever criticisms you've got of their law, which are very legitimate, is that by using their law properly, you can use it against them, because the weapon that you're trying to use is based upon an imaginary construct within the law. I know it sounds complicated, but it's not illegal, it's not real law that the conversation that they have about it, that you know they control objects. They don't control objects, they control people. And when we put it in the right alignment, that we talk about it as a subject, not ourselves as an object, that's because it's a form of enslavement.
Yeah.
You become property in the eyes of the law because drugs are illegal. Paul,
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to hear what Paul has to say.
Oh, he has got one question. Do you want to
I
do
know,
it?
sir, so I'm
Briefly,
also
yeah.
studying law. I'm on my third year now, and this is the first time you explained it so fluent to what this magic is, the spell is,
Yes.
that controls people.
Thank you.
So now, when I asked the elder, so a group of elder Samus went to the stone circle, but now I'm asking him what must come in there. He said it must be a piece of gold. So I said, why? Where do I get gold now in this year? Because I'm born in 1991, interim apartheid. So I don't know nothing before that. What happened, actually? I know, but I asked the elders, they tell me. So I'm asking why there must be a piece of, where do I get gold? Is it legal if they catch me with the gold? It's like, no, it is here in the mountain. But please don't go look for the rangers will arrest you.
I'm going to give you some badges for your question.
Then on the other side, there must be a diamond. Now I ask him, where do I get diamonds?
Yes.
He said, no, it is in the mountain, but if they catch
Right,
you.
some gold badges here for you.
So now we're doing ceremonies like we're acting like we're poison. Because this stuff is what was found here by the stone circle. So now when we're done ceremony, we must go to the beach and get crayfish. Nah, I said, no, man. Where am I going to get crayfish now? He said, no. If they catch you with crayfish, they're going to arrest you. So that's what you're telling me, is that we are now fully controlled by cooperative, punitive, over our human welfare. Because everything I mentioned is ceremonial. It's nothing to do with making money, or you understand what I'm saying?
Decolonizing the whole
It was here on this
commercialization
land,
with this
you
language.
understand? And we use the mushrooms, and we use the cannabis, or the dacha, to trance, and to purge, and to sing, and to dance, and so, yeah.
Okay.
So, what happened is that the law, the word, it was bestowed upon our people, and this is why we are.
We have to beat them with their own tools.
Yeah.
Let's both speak, please.
So Russ, Gareth will confirm that him and I can have very interesting side discussions, philosophical discussions about language and spellcasting and all of these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, we live in a participatory democracy, but that's in theory. Hands up if anybody here feels that governments actually listened to them in the last 10 years, despite how nicely they put something. Which is why Gareth and I and Myrtle and a whole bunch of other people end up in court. Right? And I've seen Gareth stand up in court, and he certainly doesn't address the judges the way that him and I can have a philosophical debate. He tailors his language to suit the courts, because the other decision makers in government, parliamentarians who are in charge of statute, are not listening to us, despite how nicely we put it. So the last chance that we have of achieving cognitive liberty or any of these other ideals is to convince primarily a judge of the High Court and then the panel of judges in the Constitutional Court. But what do? We tailor our language in terms that they understand, in terms that we feel are going to be acceptable to them, that they're going to be receptive of this, which is why I got into this debate last night with Darryl, that I don't feel that something like a Cognitive Liberty Act is going to be accepted by Parliament because they don't listen to us. And for that matter, this whole iterative nature of litigation, the whole reason that we haven't gone for the jugular and tried to reform the whole of the Drugs Act is not because we don't want to, it's because we've taken legal counsel. And the legal counsel, much as was the case right at the beginning when it came to gay marriage, the applicant in that gay marriage application was cautioned out of it for a number of years until the groundwork had been laid. So what are we doing? We're laying the groundwork for this. In the psilocybin matter, Monica Kromhout's matter, we are going to be arguing for cognitive liberty. But we're not framing it in the papers as cognitive liberty. We are saying that the following constitutional rights, by their natural extension, get us to cognitive liberty. And this is a debate that I had with Myrtle since day one, and Jules when he was still alive, which is that stop focusing on the language of it. We're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to achieve something. And once we've achieved cognitive liberty,
So did you say not to focus on the language? What else is
I'm saying you focus on language that is going to achieve your end. Once you have achieved your end, call it whatever you like. But don't compromise getting to the destination by using language that is not going to convince people and may actually send them in the opposite direction.
Well, I'm really not sure what I have to reply to that, because I'm talking about legalese as a precise discipline that lawyers must adhere to, and any court that indulges the pseudo-legalese that these are illegal products, and you find that counterproductive because you're now correcting
cognitive liberty. In the context of cognitive liberty, there are many lawyers who feel that if you were to just throw this into court papers immediately and say, I am claiming my right to cognitive liberty,
yes.
If you get an old conservative white Afrikaans judge who thinks that Dhaka is Dhaka, now you're coming with your magic mushroom,
which is why
you could go in the other direction.
So, no, I've got a question here, because everybody's talking about national or state legal systems. Do we not talk about this as a discussion in international law? And if not, why not? Is it because we can't? I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a writer. So I'm just thinking of, like you, I'm thinking of ideas to get to that end point. But how do we do it? And should we be doing it to the courts, through policy and parliament, or should we be looking at international law and international bodies?
Brett,
No, I don't
question.
think so.
Okay.
Go for it, Martin.
No, I just think on Sean's point of international law, I think
in some ways, we suffer from that in South Africa, as there's too many different viewpoints, and you can be scuppered by one person.
In Australia, they always use international law as a reason for us not to do A, B, or C.
And
drugs
that would be my exact
it's not
reason
law.
why
Which is
I wouldn't
another
law.
call-out.
Yeah.
The international conventions are ratified and not incorporated. They're not laws.
Yeah,
Yes.
as
They
we
are-
know.
Yeah.
with
But
cannabis
that
and cannabis.
notwithstanding, when you think that when I go for a cigarette in Vienna at the UN, I'm standing next to a sheik from the UAE, and I'm standing next to a Russian, and I'm standing next to whatever. I think that a country like South Africa, who has one of the most amazing constitutional democracies, and I agree with
is the
Darryl,
key- is the
it's a
open-
little bit of it's a gateway drug.
It's
I think
gateway
it's a
drug.
gateway, yeah. But I wouldn't attempt it unless you went through the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights or something like that. I don't know whether international. It's too broad. There's too many players.
Right.
Yeah.
I think like we often are scared to go for all the way to the jugular because, like Paul Michael says, we actually have a sad reality that we have to work with, right? But I kind of tend to agree, like with Darryl, that the ideal is to free ourselves of linguistic change, right? But I think we're limited by the fact that our language is English, how do you decolonize an already colonized language which separates the subject and object of experience? We have no hope of freeing the law from these chains in English because before we've even begun, like you said, the endocannabinoid system is the subject and object. We are so deeply connected. I'm so deeply connected within my observation of you right now.
There's misalignment right now,
So,
because the object is where the subject should be, and I'm saying once you flip that, then you can progress. And if you adopt a human-centric language throughout the narrative, then it becomes more permeable with the courts and
but we
and
can't do it in
jurisprudence.
English. African languages, at least the limited knowledge that I have of them, at least Bantu languages, don't separate the subject, often don't separate subject and
Yeah,
object of
perfect.
experience.
By using
So
English the right
English
way
is just
round.
inadequate to achieve these ideals.
Yes, but once
So
you-
we're screwed before we've started.
Yeah, but we're doubly screwed because we've got it the wrong way round. Once we get it the right way round, that's a transformation in English. And then, like we try to describe love in poetry, even though it's impossible because it's ineffable, we get closer. Because what we're doing, law is the ultimate in language, and drugs are the ultimate in defying language, ineffability. So we're using the ultimate ineffability, law, to define our relationship with the ineffable. And we can do it in English. It's not as good as indigenous language. I accept that. But the double jeopardy problem is that it's back to front. If you put it the right way round, you'll get a lot closer to it, and we have to do it in English.
So give us a lesson on how we do it. How do you write the law?
Perhaps can I just say this, that there's a distinction between law and justice. And I think I'm going to coming closer to what Darryl is saying is there should be a focus on justice, not the law. Right? Because the law is not its own justification. Justice is just laws, and that is what we don't have currently. And a judge is supposed to be informed by justice and principle, not legalese. He must be able to see the spirit of the law. What informs the law in itself? Because the law is a construct. It's used by human beings in order to advance or protect themselves. Now, the apartheid legislatures and judges, they had a normative and a value system which they defended through laws. Constitutional democracy, we have a value system or a normative system that we are trying to protect through the agency of law and regulation and all of that other stuff. But if it is not based on justice, then we miss the point at the end of the day, and we allow law then to become this construct that rule us like a robot or an outside force, whereas we should be directing the robot and not allow the robot to control and direct us.
Okay, thank you very much. A couple of questions. You haven't spoken yet, so lady with the interesting hair.
I just wanted to take a comment and maybe frame it in a question. And so I'm a pharmacist by profession. So you said a very operative word, brother, is protect. So my job is to protect people from the overusage or whatever. Okay. So Paracelsus himself had said, like in way back whenever Paracelsus was alive, he says, no, nothing is poison. The poison is in the dose. So you even said there, that bottle can sit there, as illicit as it likes. It's the dose that you have of that water that becomes the poison. And myself, just as a custodian, I call myself a custodian of medicine and a strong proponent of cannabis. Where does that sit with what we're doing? My most important is my patient outcome, and that they are protected operatively.
That's the pharmacon idea, that the same substance can be both medicine, poison and sacrament, depending on concept.
Not my job. So my job is to protect that.
I think the sanctity of medicine you need to protect.
Yeah, well,
Because
yes.
the current law, and that's what it says, the law is the injustice to you to not to protect the community. And that's your work. You know, I think what Darryl is highlighting is the wordplay. The critical insight into what was used in order to confuse us in understanding the law.
Exactly.
So scheduling then was that.
I haven't answered your question thoroughly, but we'll talk later. So, just a question you've asked, but I'll let you come in a second. But the exuberant gentleman at the back.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. We indigenous people think that it would be better served. You see this issue of English. You see, English is a problem. You know that. And when English becomes a problem to English people, now imagine how it is to us. So, please, my brother, you know, we keep on watching this European drama here, you know, how it is outplaying, how you call yourselves people with law and with this and with that, how you want to trick each other and fool each other, and you act as if you are trying to be nice to somebody who's going to die if you're not nice to him, and you know, stuff like that. You understand? And you take days and years. Look, truth be told, if you really care for someone or something, your behavior will show it. If you really care for people, your behavior will show it here and now. Especially if you're somebody with a degree. A degree, people call you my learned friend. They call you all nice names. They bow when you walk past. They pay you a lot of money just to talk to you. You now are unable to bring a peace of mind to a normal transaction. That person plans, the other one does, the other one does, the other one can check. They want to check, give information, they need to give information and let it grow and grow and grow. But in principle, the transactions should be taking place as nature requires it. Now you talk like this. For us, it's very strange. You see, the last hour for me, my brother, at the beginning, I was lost at what you're saying. What is this, man? But what you're saying is very important, very, very significant. Yes, it's true, man. Cannabis can't be evil. Cannabis can't be taken. If I knew that argument before today, yes, I would have told. And I'm going to tell them now. Thank you for that because Europeans, you have so much money you can make with us, with our culture, with our hearts, with our love. You are wasting your own time. And our government, truly be told, they listen to you more than they listen to us. So when you're sitting here saying, our government don't listen to us, we don't believe you. They listen to you. More than they, no, my friend. So anyway, at the end of the day, when we look at this legislation the way it is right now, we have the strong feeling that they were actually listening to you and other Europeans for them to get this one, because they didn't get that from us. That's one thing for sure.
I've given this to you, and there's no kind of divide in my mind. I know it's not a white thing. It's not a white thing.
No, I said European mentality, you know, structure, governance, system, the culture, the way of solving problems, the way of addressing a plant. How just to address a plant, like so much drama just to address an issue around a plant. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
Again, it was when you were up here, it was suggested that we are sort of in an echo chamber here. We're all convinced of this message. How do we translate this into something, because I promise you, government does not listen to us. It doesn't matter whether we're European or African, they've got their own ideas. How do we take what we all agree on here and actually package it such that it makes sense to them? And I hope that it's not just going to be about how much money can be made.
That's what it
I'm going to give her a chance. I'll speak. Okay. Very quickly, I just want to follow on.
Just a brief one.
He said about English. How he stops there. But now now you have friends. So now teamwork makes the dream work. Because when I say hemp, I'm speaking Khoisan and I'm wearing a hemp right now. When I say Gaga, there's Daga. I'm speaking Khoisan. So this thing was here before any law constructs or any law was imposed on this land. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, that's what we're trying to do with Project Indiana.
Because I'm short.
Tia, yes please. Tia, yes please. Yes
Because I'm
please.
short, guys. Okay, so I'm an Indigenous Knowledge Systems researcher, archaeologist, anthropologist, and my thing is, when white people are asking us how they decolonize their own language so that they can understand things, the language that they have used on us as spells, because like you said, they confuse us with the language that they use. They say an inanimate object is criminal, but it can't be a criminal because it doesn't have, cognitive ability. It cannot act on its own. So the criminal is the person. That's what they've done to us. They've criminalized our indigenous knowledge systems, right? So how we then go about decolonizing all of this is that we start looking at it from the indigenous perspective. We stop saying medicinal cannabis, hemp, this and this, and trying to fit it into the same colonial systems that criminalized it in the first place. We are cramming something that was shoved out into a hole that it does not fit anymore. So what we do is change our perspective, change our thought, change how we look at it. Cannabis is a natural resource. Cannabis is an indigenous knowledge systems. It is spiritual. It is part of our sacred rites and our sacred rituals. So that's how we change, right? How do we then do that and give it to them? By using their language, like he said. We package our indigenous knowledge systems, which is what I do, into a way that all of you can understand.
Okay.
I package our ritual, our thought, into a way that everyone can access and that everybody can understand. Once we put that level of understanding into this industry, we'll thrive. Because then we'll be able to put together frameworks that we can indeed present to these people from an indigenous place in a language that they have used to kill us. Thank you.
And marry with scientific knowledge.
Marry
with scientific knowledge.
That's what we are doing.
Scientifically.
Can I throw a
Sound.
quick spanner?
Yes.
We've got time for a quick spanner.
Quick spanner. So, in the depth of myself, as I stand here as a female, there is a complexity about the cannabis plant that I'm also not entirely sure should be compacted into. Very much what my sister said over there is the female plant is complex. How do we want to take just THC, just CBN, just CBG, just CBN? White willow bark is aspirin. It's a single molecule that was taken from a plant, but one molecule. How are we taking in a limited, I'm being conservative by saying 500 compounds from one plant and disseminating it into a non-complexity. And I say it from a female perspective because I know females are complex, all the other females in the room will forgive me gentlemen. But to uncomplexize a female plant or a female is a very difficult thing to do. So sometimes I do think we're farting against standard.
I said it's universal, okay? It's not a male-female thing. We're not making divisions here. We're ending the separation. The separation is made by flipping the subject and the object. That's how they separate you. That's how they create false binaries. I'm completely supporting the holistic principles that you're talking without necessarily creating gender divisions.
I like to think of it in a weird way. When I first spoke about it, it's a bit like, I wish we were in Star Trek world, because if we were having that conversation, we would be far more logical in understanding the totality of everything and everybody. So obviously in this room, we're in South Africa, and people are talking about being within certain communities within South Africa. But I want to think about this as a planetary approach.
Yes.
And so I come from Australia, and I don't know the laws of all the different indigenous people of Australia, but they have laws as old, if not older, than here. And those laws need to be, the knowledge of those laws need to be shared with the knowledge of your laws, with the knowledge of the white law, with the knowledge of Native American law that Mitch deals with. And if we can, and we actually have the ability now with technology to learn and understand that. And if we can collect all that knowledge, maybe that's where I think Darryl's idea works, because we're in a Star Trek-y sort of world, and we can be far more, we can look at this in a more logical manner. Anyway, that's my
Can I piggyback on that?
The cognitive dissonance, right, that we're all experiencing is because we are not approaching the issue holistically.
Yeah. We are one planet, one people,
in
etc.
silos, and that fosters the cognitive dissonance. If we start approaching human rights and life from a holistic and an integrated perspective, we will come to that cognitive liberty that we are all craving for, and which we all know is desired and required in order to take us as a species forward. Because the one thing that I always emphasize, and which I say which doesn't get the necessary attention, is the environmental justice, the link that we as human beings have with our environment, and the impact that criminalization has had on the environment as a whole. And if we start approaching it from that perspective, I think we will demystify a lot of the intricacies that's involved in semantics and in law.
Yeah, and I have Ricky speaking about that tomorrow. That was really, really important.
So we've got 3 days. I want to develop this. It's not just a session. I'm trying to launch a whole transformation here. It's more than a change. Use the power word, transformation. So we've got to transform the narrative. We've got nothing to lose. You agree? We've got nothing to lose.
No.
We're not going to. We're not going.
Just some court cases.
No. We are not going to fluff the court case by speaking the truth. It can only add weight to the argument. Sit with it, Paul. Allow that to gravitate. It's not like I'm coming along and saying legalize all drugs. That's the problem. That's what the Green Party has tried to do in England.
And in Australia as well.
And they've come out with, oh, so you want to sell crack to school children? Because it's a binary. It's as bad as prohibition, but flipped. They're talking rubbish. And if the judge characterises, oh, so Paul, you tried to legalise all drugs with your cognitive liberty. No! We're trying to have a proportionate, regulatory, responsible system based upon the autonomy of the individual to reasonable liberty. And there's nothing in there that's going to compromise your argument for psilocybin access. Nothing. It can only help. But as I said, it's 3 days, so if we run out of time, we haven't run out of time. It's just going to keep going and keep going while we're here.
And I really want to, I think South Africa is a really, you guys understand this conversation more than I would say any other country on the planet. And so, and because you have a range of languages, a range of cultures, you can share this idea around the world. And you can share it with, my country, well, not my country adopted, Indonesia, because they won't be listening for a long time, but you can share it with North Americans, with Canadians, with British people, with Ghanaians, with Moroccans, with, you name it, you can share it with everybody. And that, I think that's really, really important. And I think Darryl has really hit upon a point that we should try and push forward. Because all the other conversations over the 2 days really rely on the core of what he's talking about, I think.
So always remember, when they talk about it, they mean you. And don't allow...
There's a new badge. There's a new badge. Then they're talking about it, they're talking about it.
That was already on me. So, there's an itivization of this, an objectification of your consciousness. So when people say we should legalise it, free it, come up, we're going to medicalise it, that it is always, it's not the it. It and you are the same thing. So if you humanise it to yourself, So okay, words can be it, humanize it, the sentence, but get yourself in the imaginary centre and always express everything to do with any kind of drug. Always put yourself in there. So if you hear something that people say, oh yeah, we should decriminalise cannabis, although it's implied what they mean, just say, oh, you mean decriminalise people who behave responsibly with cannabis and want to do nice things with cannabis. Yeah, if you decriminalise those people, you're always humanising it. Humanising, keep saying it, but it's not the same it that I'm complaining about. But can we continue throughout coffees and pick me up on this?
But so
yeah, okay.
It's going to probably start another circle thing now. But going on to what Gareth said about that whole holistic approach, we've seen so many challenges on that, and I think that's one of the core difficulties that we'll face going forward. Just from our interactions back in CIDC days, just trying to get tribal leaders to agree is a challenge on its own. Now you need to get that body to agree, to speak to a larger body to agree on a larger construct. And that's why I very much agree with Snooks on the idea that our country has adopted the Western perceptions as opposed to our local perceptions, because we had that when we went speaking to tribal leaders. You speak to a tribal leader, they have the perception of you come onto my land, you ask for permission after you've left. You don't necessarily have to ask for permission to be on my land. In a Western world, we've got walls, we've got gates. We can see that through supper and whatnot has been enforced in legislation. How do you cross those two large boundaries? And we very much in this country believe in walls, but that's not our archaic systems.
Walls or wars?
Walls, as in something to protect your property.
Yes.
Whereas RKS, you freely move over the property. So now how do we enforce a Western in an African construct? And these people have to pay licenses to engage in those systems. But it's not the way their culture interacts as a whole. So that's why I very much believe that it's a Western construct.
It kind of just creates a number of an area of freedom before the licensing thing kicks in. So a license should only be required if you are, say, manufacturing something which is very concentrated and it has a high propensity. If people misuse it, it could be dangerous in that sense. So you might license somebody who wants to synthesize synthetic cannabinoid, God forbid. You can only do that under a special license. But there shouldn't be licensing for growing, cultivation of cannabis for non-commercial purposes in the first place. So the cognitive liberty extends to, you see, the difference between cognitive liberty and freedom of thought is freedom of thought is about the mind. But cognitive liberty is about the processes of which we didn't mention AI and all of the screening and stuff that they're going to be doing, that they can read your mood, they can read your thoughts. All this is coming in, which is why the Cognitive Liberty Act is even more important about new technology and the corporations owning your data and being able to screen you in the street. That's really important why we need it as well. But in the subjects of this conference, it sets those walls further back so that you've got this whole area of reasonable processes. You need access. Sometimes thoughts do require activities. It's not just all internal dialogue. It requires that you can access those cannabinoids. So we're rolling back all this overextension of the state.
Paul.
So just you quite like the semantics. So are you talking about cognitive liberty or cognitive privacy?
Both. You see, it cuts both ways. It cuts both ways. We can always continue later if we don't have time. But it cuts both ways. Cognitive liberty is a protection and a freedom. So it cuts both ways. You can't be forced to take drugs. You can't be forced to have mind-altering technologies imposed upon you. But neither can. So do you understand? It's a dual-edged sword for the soul.
In South Africa, are we ready for cognitive liberty?
Yes.
I think you're more ready than a lot of other people.
Yes, but why are you separate from the system?
I understand.
That's the thing. Exactly.
But why are we
You
using?
have
Why are
to
we?
speak their language
Yes.
in order to convince them.
Yes.
And they might have limited language.
I think the better question is our legislators and our judges ready
No, they're
for
not.
cognitive
But they're
liberty?
nobody.
And they're the ones that needs to be convinced at this stage.
But why are you using the term liberty?
Say what?
Why are you using the term liberty? Because you're not free when you are on liberty. You understand? You can still be recalled.
I said, you know, laws are fetish. Human rights are. People think they're wonderful. We need them to move to the next level. But ultimately, the fact that you need to go to court to an unelected judge and fight for them to say yes or no, that means we're already in a dystopian world.
Because liberty for me feels like it makes me free. But I'm not free from the master. I'm free from the hand and from the shackle. But I'm not free from the master.
Yeah, okay. Well, the political aspect comes later. Yeah.
Sorry, otherwise we'll be here all afternoon. Thank you, Darryl.